Hello, everyone in ESR and probably mostly the ESR Academy. I am Mike, and I am here to talk to you real quick about, well, not real quick, because this will probably take about 15 minutes. I'm here to talk to you about the concept of out-of-position cars. Now, I'm here at the start of the RWB, or the ESR RWB Super Series, that occurs every Saturday and is having its finale literally tomorrow, probably today by the time this video is uploaded. And this is from the 7th round of the championship at Monza in the Tier 3 category. There are 3 cars involved. The one that I'm looking at right now, that's RWB Robert in this lovely yellow Porsche. That is Kate Warburton in the Jensen Rocket McLaren livery, which has become very, very popular because I think there were 3 of these at one point. And Liam Curtin in the Rebel Porsche. I'm not sure if you're signed up with that, and I know it violates the Super Series rules, so Liam, hint, 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 nudge, nudge, nudge. Don't bring that. But anyways, Liam's our driver. The other 2 are RWB drivers. Doesn't matter. This is a universal example. This is not me picking on anyone in particular. So my point here is that you can see that Curtin and Warburton are up to the front of the pack. They're 6th and 7th on the grid. Robert's back in 13th. Their delta in qualifying was, let's see here, 49.8, 51, and 51.1. So yeah, he's more than a second slower than both of these cars under qualifying scenario. Could be closer in the race, and I believe it will be. But the point is that these are 2 cars that are probably slightly faster than him. And what happens is Warburton gets into trouble early in the race, has to pit because from hitting a wall, and Curtin late in the race has to make a second pit stop from hitting a wall. So basically they're both a pit stop down, and their pit stops were long because there was damage to fix. As a result, RWB Robert is going to be a lap ahead of them. Now, I have got the wrong lap here. There we go. So this is lap 23 of the race. RWB Robert has just come through the Ascari chicane. He recently lapped Liam Curtin because Liam made a mistake. Nothing wrong yet. But he has 12th and 13th place, down a lap, battling for position behind him. And he's in a bit of an interesting spot here. He's 16 plus seconds behind Marcus Subtotal. He's 3.2 up the road from Kim Johansson. And he has a decision to make here. Is he going to stay ahead of the 2 lapped cars, or is he going to let them through? And he's going to make the former decision, and I do not think I necessarily agree with it. Now, if we run this forward to Parabolica, we can see that Curtin came very close to hitting him in the back there. This exposes the danger of being in front of faster cars, because there's some place that they're faster than you in. Now, Robert is going to brake fairly late into Parabolica here, like well be inside the 100-meter mark. Now, I did notice, I went back and looked at a couple other laps of his. He does brake relatively similar to this. Normally, it does seem like he's got that good handle on the late brakes into the Parabolica, which is a good talent to have. But I have to say, this is deeper, and I have to think it has something to do with the fact that Curtin, or Warburton, I'm going to mix up the names, sorry. That Warburton is very clearly showing him the nose there. Now, if I could quibble with Warburton here, me and the RWB stewards kind of agreed that she should have gone for it here. That she should have not given Robert the option to keep her a lap down. At the same time, I totally get it from her point of view. If she hits RWB Robert, it's probably a penalty, because if you hit someone while unlapping yourself, it doesn't look good. It's going to require them doing something quite silly to make that not a thing. But we're on a long straightaway here. Would have been very easy to let them through. We're going to hit another long straightaway here at Parabolica. And here's the thing also. By making her back out, he's created a 2 wide here behind it between Curtin and Warburton. Very hectic fight going on right now behind him. That's a dangerous place to be. And she's trying to get through here again, but he's not lifting off. Comes back to the stream, or to the slipstream here. Doesn't quite get into it. She said something about lag in her comments about this incident that had a good chunk of time in regards to the stewards meeting. Now, I do want to touch on some numbers real quick here. So, that last lap from Liam was a 52.9. His fastest lap was a 51.4 at this time. She did a 52.1, so about 0.8 quicker, and a 50.9 is her fastest lap. And then Liam's 50.1 is a way faster lap. He'd have made a mistake in this lap, so the 54.7 is not terribly germane. Now, I also want to put out that Johansson closed from over 3 seconds back to 1.8 back because he's fighting with them, and he's fallen back an additional 2 seconds from Marcus subtotal. So he's losing ground to the car ahead, losing ground to the car behind, and he's created himself a very dangerous position here because he's got two side-by-side cars battling for position. It would be one thing if there was one car behind him that wasn't really racing anybody. You could probably ignore them. They're just dragging it to a finish. But it's very clear that these two are still scrapping over 12th place. And they want it. And they should want it. He's putting himself in my opinion, a dangerous position that he doesn't need to. Two faster cars behind him, let them go. This also applies if you're a pit stop ahead. Like you haven't pitted yet, you have a guy who's pit stop behind you, he's coming at you. It's slowing you down, it's hurting your race as a whole. So basically what I'm saying here is RWB Robert is hurting his race as a whole, creating a damaging spot, and probably earning very little goodwill with either driver. And I do have to say this, having goodwill with your fellow drivers is kind of key because, number one, if you're a nice driver, people report you less. Number two, if people are comfortable racing around with you, they're not going to do things that are terribly insane, and they're not going to send it quite as well. I will go through a story here. There is a driver that used to race in ESR, used to race in Zero Racing. There are probably at least 6 people watching this video who have already figured out who I'm talking about, but he was known as an exceedingly rough driver. And the thing is that it encouraged people to race roughly against him because you couldn't not race roughly against him. He was the type of guy who was going to move around a little bit in braking zones and so on. You had to be unequivocal and shove him out of the way. He was not very well liked. And the goal is not per se to be well liked, although I think probably everyone should want to be well liked to a certain degree. But it also meant that if he did something wrong, we didn't believe it was a honest mistake. He had admitted to driving into people. And it's a pretty bad place to be if the community you're racing in doesn't believe that you're making honest mistakes and that there's intentionality or whatever. And I'm not saying, I want to be clear here, I'm not saying RWB Robert has any of that. I've not raced him. I have no frame of reference for him. I've raced Liam Curtin. Liam's a good little driver, although has significant ping issues. I've not raced these two cars. But, at least not that I can recall. So that would be the thing. If I don't recall you, you made no particularly negative impression upon me. So we'll put that way. But your goodwill with other drivers is pretty important. He's probably losing that here a little bit, just a smidge. And he's creating a very dangerous situation because if we continue going here, we see there's going to be contact behind him here as Warburton kind of nips off Liam's front end here. I think the stewards decided this was a racing incident. I would say that it's Warburton's fault, probably 75-25, but she pays the price, so there was no penalty to look at. Now, obviously, there's new stewarding point here that requires you to let a faster car through. That is ridiculous. We would never do that. What I'm suggesting is to have situational awareness of what your race is, A, and B, self-preservation. Because I've used the term danger zone before. This is definitively putting yourself in the danger zone and costing you time to the people you're fighting anyways. So there's just no upside take a couple tenths penalty basically by lifting off. I would have lifted off before Parabolica. Because, again, if we go back to the end of... yeah, here we are. Heading into Ascari. Like... And there's going to be a Porsche that randomly appears here shortly. Whoop! Like, almost got hit in the ass. And if we get a better racing view here. 2 cars going side by side, 3 wide into the Parabolica with people I'm not racing. No. I have no interest in that. I have no interest in that. So, this lesson is a little bit of self-preservation. Remember who your opponents are, and keep in mind at this point in the race, they knew they had like 7 laps left. You don't need to get killed to, like, if somebody's going to unlap themselves and still catch you in 7 laps, they were coming through anyways. That's all. You see it in endurance racing. A lot of times people will give people a lap back just to avoid problems. You'll see it in other forms of racing even. Not F1, because F1, when you're getting lapped, you're getting lapped. But just be smart. Because if you get taken out by a lapped car that's fighting like this, yeah, they'll get a penalty. Most likely. Doesn't undo the damage. Doesn't undo the spin. Doesn't undo the lost time. So, there you go. That's my thoughts. Take them or leave them, because that is all they are. My thoughts. But I think it's a smart way to approach racing at times.